I just want to, first of all, mihi out to the people who came before me. And I was just mulling on this. Hayden, when you spoke, the kōrero that I took away was, when I paused and I thought about how you spoke, I remember you were a rascal. You're a rascal, and then you're working for your dad, and you're not doing a good job, and then God touched your life. Boom. Mike, I want to mihi out to you, because when you spoke, the bit that's stuck in my mind is when you're nicking the esteem 58 mics from the Catholic Church, you know, taking your bump, and then God changed your heart, you know. Joe, when you spoke, and you said you're in the corridor at the hospital, and it's pain in your back, and then they announced to you, we haven't got good news for you. When I sat, and the way you guys took that news, and just that whole kōrero around that, it was, that's what I took away. You know, we all take away stuff, and it affects how we think for the time to come. And I just want to mention to you guys, your messages, they make a difference. Would you, if you have a Bible, would you grab your Bible and turn it to Proverbs, and we're going to go to chapter 18 and verse 21. Proverbs 18 verse 21, it says this: the tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. They asked me to speak about identity, and I thought, well, the easiest way to do this would be to take you on a journey of kōrero around what my life was like. You didn't really need another lecture on identity. I think a story, a narrative, will hit home the points in a greater effect to you. When I was a school kid, I was living in Taupo, and I come from a family who can fix anything. I don't know why it's that way, but my dad, if the VHS player broke, man, he pulled the top off and he fixed that thing, you know. If my hockey stick broke at school, he took the boat epoxy resin, he wrapped it up in fiberglass, and he handed it back to me, and it was fixed. And he didn't care if they had a lump on the side of your hockey stick and people made fun of you. That's just how it is. We fix stuff, we don't just buy stuff. So I grew up like that. I remember going to Taupo Nuitia school, and I didn't even stay there for lunch because I was heading home to fix some bicycle or some motorcycle. And I had this uncle, my dad's brother, called Ron. Ron could weld anything, chop anything. He was one of those guys who had a welder, you know. I didn't have a welder. I was only little, maybe 13, 14, something like that. But I had a Raleigh 20. And I had a Briggs and Stratton, I had this piece of chain, you know. So off to Uncle Ron's, and we'd dreaming this thing up, and he would get a piece of 4mm plate, and we're blowing holes trying to weld it to the Raleigh 20, you know. Anybody know what a Raleigh 20 is? You know? We got this lanky piece of chain, and I didn't even get a throttle hooked up to the handlebar. Man, I'm just riding down the road, holding this hand and flipping the throttle on and 6 o'clock in the morning, there was no police on the street. You know, so I'd get up 6 o'clock in the morning, roll along on the bike, drop the back on the ground, and then boom, it would go boom, 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 and I'd ride it for an hour all over Taupo, through all the parks, down the footpath. They were just great days, you know? And so you could see that there was this fix-it thing going on, and I was carrying it, you know. Well, I left school about 17, 18, and I went down sort of by the boat harbour in Taupo, and there was a shop there, a mechanic shop, and I said, I want to work for you, and they said, okay, you can come work here, you can be our apprentice. So I get to the shop, and I thought, I've got the job of my dreams. I'm just so excited, you know, and I turn up work every day, and I'm a young 18-year-old, and I'm pumping, I'm ready to learn. But there's a guy in the shop, his name is John, and his nastiness warmed up, man. He's just mean and nasty. I remember sitting in the smoker room. One day he said, oh, the dog next door was barking and he won't shut up, and I told her, neighbour, you better shut the dog up. The next day he comes and says, oh, I took care of the dog last night, put a 4x2. It's just like, I'm 18. I'm just going, are you kidding me? You know? I remember he would just have fits of anger. I remember there was a young apprentice and he sanded back this car, and it was just beautifully sanded back. John takes his hand, sticks it in oil, and puts finger marks all over his car, you know? It's just like, are you kidding? Like, you'd arrive in the morning, and you say, oh, good morning. And he would say, It's just like, can't you be friendly? I remember one day I had a distributor cap in my hands, back when cars had distributor caps, and I look at it, and I'm going, I'm not sure if there's a crack, and then I said, hey, John, can you see if there's a crack in this distributor cap? And I hand him the rotor and the distributor cap. And he goes, I don't know nothing about these things. You know, he just walks off. Another day was getting worse. It was 9 months long. And another day, I walked past the 60-litre drum on the ground. And there's my chrome socket and ratchet and tools. And man, he just goes, sweeps whatever you're doing into the rubbish bin, man. This guy is like, as nasty as you can get. Now, I know years later, he's broken, okay? But right now, man, he's breaking me. You know, he's affecting my identity. I'm starting to hurt, and I'm only 18 years old. I was a youth group leader in those days. I had this Ford Transit van, had an extended front on the front because I put me a 240 Falcon 6 in it, you know, and I took it out and I stuck it on the bench at work like this, and I shined that thing up with a spray can. It was bright blue, and I was sitting there looking beautiful. And then Saturday morning I stick it in the van at home, and I turn the key and I start it, and Dad's standing there, and it goes, knock, 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 knock. It's like smashing to pieces. And I took it out. It was a perfect motor. I only painted it. Dad and I took the head off the Ford. There's a ball bearing in number 1. Mr. John, that'll be fun for you to solve. And there's like bullet holes all over the piston. It's just like riveted, man. It's destroyed, you know. Monday morning, Dad comes down. My dad's kind of soft, big softy really. He's not an angry, confrontational sort of guy. We're standing there. There's John. He's the foreman. There's the owner of the company. And there's my dad. And my dad's going, we got to sort this out, man. This is no good. And John starts to rage and boil in his eye sockets, you know. And all of a sudden, whack, he assaults my dad. And it's like, no. And I remember driving down the street after this experience, and it was all over. My job was gone. My apprenticeship was terminated. You know, and I'm there and I'm going, how did this happen? And then, you know, it's all flashing through your head as you're in the passenger side of your dad's car driving like, why did this happen? I knew where it happened. It was just like, why? And my identity, it was fear shaking, you know? Hold that thought for a minute. 7 kilometres over here is Wakeman Road, Acacia Bay. There's another narrative going on. 7 Ks around the edge of Lake Taupo, down Acacia Bay Strait. You guys have probably been there. Acacia Bay, you know. I go to a home group. I cannot even tell you the name of the man who spoke. Stuff was blurry. Man, I'm hurting, you know. The home group goes down. He's a guest speaker from out of town. I grab my helmet, my leather jacket, and I walk down to my motorcycle, and I'm about to drive away. And he comes down the stairs. He goes, hey, excuse me. And I say, oh, yeah, hello. And he goes, I had a word for you. And I'm going, oh, yeah. He said, I didn't say it in front of everyone, but I wrote it out for you. Here it is. I grabbed the piece of paper. I'm at home now. It says, you are my son. And I love you with an everlasting love. Know that I love you. Know that I'll not fail you, nor forsake you, and that nothing that you do will cause me to reject you. Crazy, man. How did he know? You know what? He was a secret agent. I'm not kidding, man. He's just like normal bloke, disguised secret agent, in the hands of God, getting used. I remember growing up a little bit more. Would you turn with me to Matthew 10 and verse 28? Matthew 10, verse 38. I'm saying it wrong because I can't see through the tears. Luke 10, verse 38. Yeah, let's go again. Luke 10, verse 38. Okay, we got it? Luke, let's get it clear. Luke 10, 38. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her, Lord. Tell her to help me. That's what she says, you know. And you know what? I was just like Martha growing up in those years, 19, 20. I got another job down the road. They took me on as apprentice at Bill's Autos. And yet, I was still carrying something. I was, you know, if this is the red line, I'm going, you know, here it's going to smash to pieces, man. I'm in the red line. I'm living at 100 miles an hour. I remember at one time, I counted out how many nights of the week that I was out at home group, youth group, this, that. It was 5 out of 7. I was running in a red line. And not only that, as somebody at church said, oh, my car's broken down. Man, I'll be there within half an hour fixing their car for them. I couldn't even drive past someone on the side of the road without stopping and helping them pull the head off their car. You know, I'm wired to fix, but I haven't got this thing nailed down. I'm just sort of, I'm running, and I'm not doing any resting, and I'm definitely not taking a look at what's going on in my head and what I'm saying or feeling or thinking. I wasn't even in touch with any of this or that, and I'm in the red line the whole time. So much so that when I was 23 in 1993, I went to Faith Bible College, and then of course I took the job to look after the camp vehicles and the mowers and the weed eaters, and I'm striving and do, because my identity is based in, if I fix, you'll like me. Well, I end up in the deputy principal's office, and he's a short European out of England, short curly hair, and he's sitting at his desk, and he says to me, yeah, I'm listening to what you're saying. And he says, young man, you don't really know how to rest. I'm going, rest? That's a foreign word. And he said, I can see that you know how to work, but you don't know how to rest. He says, do you know what Papamoa Beach is? I said, yeah, it's down the road. He said, have you got a vehicle? I said, yeah, I got a motorbike. He said, you're not on work duties anymore. He says, every day during work duties, you are to go to the beach, you can sit there, you can go for a walk, you can mow on things. He sent me to rest every afternoon, 5 days a week at Papamoa. Guess what he was? He's another secret agent. I still wasn't getting it by 1994. I came out of Faith Bible College, and by 1994, in my mind, I thought I was going to be a pastor at 24 years old. Can you imagine that would have destroyed me, right? You know, and it's just like, why is this not happening? And why is that not happening? And I'm still running on. Why? No. You know, it's like, this is like, life is 100 miles an hour. I'm still not slowing down to have a look what I'm thinking or what I'm feeling. And about then, I'm starting to lose teeth off my gearbox. It's starting to go clonk, you know. And different people picked up on it. Robin picked up on it. This lady in church. And Dale and Ginny, they picked up on it. And they said, young man, you're striving, you're running at 100 miles an hour. You need to go and see Jean. Now, at this point, the backs of my legs were aching. I don't know why. I know now I was stressed. My neck was continually tight like the G string on the guitar. You know, it's just like, I'm just stressed the whole time. And I had a job change and the new boss was like, he'd give me 3 jobs ahead of the one that you're on. And it was just like, it was too hard. I'm going faster and faster. I get to Jean's. I mean, like the gearbox, she pulls me apart, and she runs a life counselling service. She pulls me apart and she lays me out over the floor. I'm not kidding, for a whole year. And she picks up a gear and she goes, well, let's have a look at this. Oh, there's teeth missing off this gear. She would say things like, for God so loved, and then I'd finish the verse, for God so loved the world, and I was ahead of her, you see. And she would say, well, why do you do that, Rex? I walk into her office and I said, do you want to see my new watch? She said, I don't care about your new watch. You didn't even ask how I was. It's all about you, Rex. You know, there was crazy stuff going on. She was disassembling the way I thought. My identity was up for grabs. The way I thought it was meant to be was broke. And not only that, when she started to pull me apart and lay me on the floor, it got worse. Not a little bit worse. Man, I didn't even know what the word depression was. Man, I sunk low. Boom! I plummeted like a plane. Until I was at church and I'm staring at the wall. It's just like blank walls. And I was low, man. It was rough and it was hard. Because everything I thought my identity was getting pulled apart and challenged, you know. There was a Maori man. His name's Dave. Matua Dave. Dave Witana. Dave was a truck driver in Taupo, run the courier, Rotorua, Taupo with his truck. I remember Dave, gentle, frizzy haircut like this. Right when I'm all pulled apart on the counsellor's floor, going there once a week, Dave grabs me and he says, young man, got a word for you, come over here. Stick his hand on me, size of a dinner plate, you know. And he says, Rex, though this is a time of brokenness, God's going to restore you stronger than you have ever been. Crazy. Teddy Fraser, another big Maori guy, Man, he had giant dinner plate hands. He was huge. You couldn't even get out of church without him getting his arms around you and screwing your squeeze. And if you were new, you couldn't even get home without going to his house for lunch. He was, and then he'd give you a chainsaw. He had like racing chainsaws with expansion chainsaws. We just had fun at his house, eating steak off his barbecue. But you know what? When Dave said, there's a time of brokenness for you, but God's going to restore you stronger than you have ever been before. Guess what, Dave? Another secret agent. Okay, by day he's the truck driver, right? On occasion, boom, he comes out and wham, he delivers a message, and it is just crazy the effect that Dave's word washed over me. A little time later, Des Short came. Des Short was the principal of Faith Bible College. He sees me in the front row of church, and he says, young man, Jeremiah 1. He's pointing at me. Jeremiah 1. He says, read it. Study it. God's going to raise you up to fulfill it. And he turns and goes on his way. It's just like secret agent. He gave me another message, you know. Jeremiah 1 says this, before you were born, I knew you. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Don't say, I'm only a child. Don't be afraid of them, for I am with you and I will rescue you. I guess I'm trying to say to you, there's all these people that God brought across my path, and they washed lies off me, and my identity started to transform from what it was, very performance-based, to what God wanted it to be. You know? Fast forward this year, March the 15th, go to get a battery for a solar-powered house with lifting batteries. I knelt down like this, and I lifted the battery, one guy on the other end, and boom, it grabbed me in the disc here. And then by that night, they're putting a duvet over me, and my knees are on the floor, my torso's on the bed. And within 3 days from there, it's getting worse. And they were trying to get on top of it. The doctor, who's my friend as well, were trying to get on top of the pain. And they go Panadol, codeine, and they're just ramping this thing up. And it's not even touching it. It's so bad. It was 1:30 in the morning, and I'm like a wounded soldier, and Darren goes to get Elijah, and then Elijah's kind of got me like an army guy who's wounded, and he's carrying me through to the kitchen table, and they don't know what to do, and I'm on a computer chair with my elbows on the table, just trying to sit it and tweak it where my thigh doesn't feel like it's got 10,000 needles burning in it. It's just not a little bit of pain. The most amount of pain I've felt in my life, and nothing's touching it. It's not going away, and it's unbearable, and now I'm 24 hours of sleep under, and it's getting hard, like I could never have described something that was getting hard in my life. I had a cell phone there. I said, Bluetooth headphones here. I said to Darren and Elijah, you two go back to bed. If I need you, take your phones. If I need you, I'll call you. There's no use all of us being down on sleep. And I just was unbearable. I was not winning. And then I thought, I want to try kneeling on this chair. So I finally get my leg up, and I kneel on the chair, and I lock my hands like this, and put my elbows here, my knees on the swiveling computer chair, and I put the Bluetooth headphones on, and I grab Spotify, and I type Christian Bluegrass. And I'm thinking, I'm going to get through this night. And the point of this story is I'm deep in the night. It's now 2, 3, 4, 5. They put a duvet over me, and they've gone back to bed. And I'm sitting there, and I've got a choice. Woe is me, this is bad, I am sore. But I hear myself speak to my soul, and I say, think like a son. Come on, Rex, think like a son. And you know all the secret agents who gave me those messages? I start kneeling on that chair, locking my hands, listening to the bluegrass, and I roll those messages through my head. First one, you're my son. Yeah. I love you. And I roll it through my head. Though this is a time of brokenness, God's going to restore you. Yeah. I've appointed you as a prophet to the nations. Don't be afraid. And guess what got me through the dark, long night? It was the messages that the secret agents gave to me. Getting the point? Amen. You know when you walk out of here today and you go back to work at Waste Management, or you go to work at Tegel, or you go back to oil and gas, or wherever you go, remember this. You're enlisted too. God's looking for secret agents, man. Can you be one? Can you get out there this week? Next week? Can you get out there? And when you see someone come across your path and there's lies hanging on them, can you just creep up on them? Boom! Let's pray. Father, I know you're looking for secret agents. I know you're recruiting today. And as we sit here today, would you lay it on our hearts to be willing and ready to be a messenger that speaks into people's identities and washes the lies of them. Can you please use us, Father? We long to be used by you in this week to come and beyond. Please, we're available. In Jesus' name. Amen. Hey, thank you for listening and close it off. Yeah. And Grant Louisa, ask her all the questions about how it could work for your family. A little bit, a lot, no. Shake somebody's hand, coffees are rolling. So glad that you're here. And bless you.